Hello students, and welcome back to yet another session on MIL English. In today's session, we are going to cover two subunits. 3.1, Philophily by R.K. Narayan, and 3.2, it's a short novel, The Story of a Goat by Perumal Murugan. Now let me take you through the contents of today's session. First, we will be introduced with the author R.K. Narayan. Then we will be talking about creating a small town, imaginary town created by R.K. Narayan, that's Malgudi, you all know. Then summary and analysis of the story, and then we will also know more about Perumal Murugan, introduction to the story, and then summary and analysis of the story. R.K. Narayan, born 1906, is one of the best known of the Indo-English writers. He created the imaginary town of Malgudi, where realistic characters in a typically Indian setting lived amid unpredictable events. Rasipuram Krishnaswamy Narayan Swamy, who preferred the shortened name R.K. Narayan, was born in Madras, India on October 10, 1906. His father, an educator, traveled frequently and his mother was frail. So Narayan was raised in Madras by his grandmother, inspired in young Narayan a passion for language and for people. He attended the Christian mission school where he said he learned to love the Hindu gods simply because the Christian chaplain ridiculed them. Narayan graduated from Maharaja's College, Mysore in 1930. In 1934, he was married, but his wife Rajam died of typhoid in 1939. He had one daughter, Hema. He never remarried. Now he created a small town world, which all of us we know, Malgudi. Narayan wrote his first novel, Swami and His Friends, in 1935 after short, uninspiring stints as a teacher and editorial assistant and a newspaper as a news editor also. In it, he invented the small South Indian city of Malgudi, a literary microcosm that critics later compared to William Faulkner's fictional county. More than a dozen novels and many short stories that followed were set in Malgudi. Narayan's second novel, Bachelor of Arts, published in 1939, marked the beginning of his reputation in England, where the novelist Graham Greene was largely responsible for getting it published. Greene has called Narayan the novelist I most admire in the English language. His fourth novel, The English Teacher, published in 1945, was partly autobiographical concerning a teacher's struggle to cope with the death of his wife. In 1953, Michigan State University published it under the title Grateful to Life and Death, along with his novel The Financial Expert. They were Narayan's first books published in the United States. Subsequent publications of his novels, especially Mr. Sampath, Waiting for Mahatma, The Guide, then The Man-Eater of Malgudi, and The Vendor of Sweets, established Narayan's reputation in the West. Many critics consider The Guide, which was published in 1958, to be Narayan's masterpiece. Told in a complex series of flashbacks, it concerns a tourist guide who seduces the wife of a client, prospers, and ends up in jail. The novel won India's highest literary honor, and it was uh, adapted for the off-Broadway stage in 1968. At least of Narayan's novels, Mr. Sampath and The Guide were adapted for the movies. Narayan usually wrote for an hour or two a day, composing fast, often writing as many as 2,000 words, and seldom correcting or rewriting. Now, let us move on to the summary of the story, titled Fellow Feeling. Now, in Fellow Feeling by R.K. Narayan, we have the theme of conflict, class, tension, bravery, bitterness, and disbelief. Taken from his Malgudi Days collection, the story is narrated in the third person by an unnamed narrator. And after reading the story, it becomes clear to the reader that Narayan may be exploring the theme of conflict. Rajam Iyer, the protagonist, while sitting in the cabin on the train, comes under the pressure of another passenger who is trying to move his way around the compartment. If anything, the other man is attempting to take over the seat that another passenger is lying on. This annoys Rajan, and he gets into a conversation with the other passenger, and before long they are having an argument based on the caste system that exists in India. With Rajan being deemed to be higher up in the caste system because he is a Brahmin, something that annoys the other passenger who does not believe the Brahmin have the right to be better than others. In the eyes, they are no more better than him. This debate about the class and caste system heightens the argument between Rajam and the other passenger. Tensions rise to a point that both men eventually stand toe to toe, ready to fight each other. This may be important as Narayan may be highlighting the animosity that existed in India at the time the story was written between social classes or castes, with many believing possibly that the only difference between classes were through birthright, where a member of the Brahmin class was meant to be respected. This is not the case for Rajan. If anything, he is treated as the enemy by the passenger in the cabin, who also does not believe in giving any respect to Rajan. Something that is noticeable by his refusal to do anything that Rajan asks him to do. When it comes to not disturbing the passenger who is lying in his seat, it might also be important that Rajam is polite throughout his conversation with the other passenger, and if anything, it is the other passenger who is looking for a fight. A fight for the other passenger would exert his authority over Raja, which would be good enough for the other passenger. It is as though that the other passenger is bitter about the caste or class system that operates in India. Most likely because he is on the lower ends of the scale, as such finds it difficult to respect those who may be considered of a better class or caste than him. Rajam, on the other hand, acts bravely when it comes to his dealing with the other passenger. He knows that he is physically smaller than him, but uses his education that he has to outwit the other passenger. No one wants to have their mouth on the left side of their face, and Rajam uses not only wit but the other passenger's fear to diffuse the situation. If anything, Rajam has acted intelligently and bravely. He knows that should he fight the other passenger on his terms, he is sure to lose. He is also interesting that it is also interesting that the other passenger blames Rajam on the increase in meat eating, meaning others who do not have the same money as Rajam are unable to purchase meat. At no stage in the story does the other passenger show any type of liking for Rajam, his class or his caste. With this belief being that Rajam days are numbered, that means his class days are unnumbered. Though on this occasion, Rajam has gotten the better of the passenger, it might also be true to say that the other passenger is bitter about the circumstances he finds himself in. Circumstances he sees no justification for. There is also a sense of disbelief at the end of the story when Rajam tells the fellow passengers that the other passenger had moved down to the fourth compartment of the train. The meek passenger who had uh, originally rolled himself into a ball on his seat believes Rajam. However, one or two of the other passengers are skeptical. This may be important as Narayan may be suggesting that the other passengers who are skeptical are still in fear over what has happened. There is nothing to stop the other passenger from moving up the train and entering their cabin again, which might be the point that Narayan is attempting to make. He may be suggesting that both the class and caste system in India may be under constant threat from others. The rules that everybody has lived by for generations may be in danger now, with man pitting his wits against man due to the social system that exists in India. Those at the lower end of the class and caste system may not see uh, why they have to be treated differently to others and as such may eventually revolt against the systems that are in place. Rajam is only an example of the many different castes that exist in India and may be unique when it comes to his ability to fight back. Now, we will move on to the next short novel. First, we know about more on the author. Now, Perumal Murugan is an Indian author, scholar, and literary chronicle who writes in Tamil. He has written 10 novels, 5 collections of short stories, and 4 anthologies of poetry. 5 of his novels have been translated into English. Seasons of the Palm, Punachi, or the story of a goat, one part woman. He was a professor of Tamil in Government Arts College in Namakkal. Perumal Murugan was born in 1966 to a family of farmers who had small land holdings near a town in Namakkal district, Tamil Nadu. His father, a farmer, supplemented the family's income by running a soda shop in a cinema theatre. Now, Murugan began writing from an early stage, and some of his early lyrics of children's songs were featured on programs broadcast by the All India Radio. Murugan initially studied Tamil literature both as an undergraduate in Erode and as a postgraduate in Coimbatore. He went on to obtain an MPhil from Madras University in Tamil Studies and followed by a PhD. As a professor of Tamil literature, Murugan had several contributions to research and academic study of Tamil literature. Murugan is the author of 10 novels and 5 collections, each of short stories and poems, as well as 10 books of non-fiction relating to language and literature, in addition to editing several fiction and non-fiction anthologies. Now, several of his novels have been translated into English, including Seasons of the Palm and Current Show. He has also written a memoir. Children's literature has a long tradition of animal tales, including Charlotte's Web and the one and only Ivan. But adult literature has, for most part, turned up its nose at such stories. Perumal Murugan happily bucks this trend with his latest, The Story of a Goat. Murugan has become a controversial figure in his native India, subject to book burnings after his novel, One Part Woman, portrayed infidelity at a religious festival. At the same time, that work found a wide audience and was longlisted for last year's National Book Award in translated literature. Stung by the criticism, Murugan retreated and considered quitting literature. But he is a fearless writer. He has returned with another parable about village life, written with breathtaking and deceptive simplicity, translated from the Tamil by N. Kalyan Raman. The novel examines the operation of caste and colorism, government surveillance, the abuse of women, all cunningly folded in the biography of an unhappy little goat. Now let us quickly go through the summary analytical part of this novel. Literature of the open land can be a mental playground for fantasies of an idyllic existence closer to our most rudimentary desires. But in Indian writer Perumal Murugan's novel, The Story of a Goat, translated from the Tamil by N. Kalyan Raman, the author pushes against simplistic representations of country life, revealing not only a darkness lurking in the pastoral, but within each of our animal cells and the political state that rules us. The story of a goat is exactly that, the tale of one goat's life on a farm in southern India. Punachi is a goat of magical origin. She presented as a gift of an unnamed elderly couple by a tall, shadowy figure only a day after her birth. Since she came from a magical, mysterious figure, the couple figures that she will bring them good luck and prosperity. The reality of Punachi is much more mundane. and she lives a life filled with loss and tragedy that ultimately drains the couple's resources. At its core, the tale or the story expresses the hope and how loss devastates. Stylistically, the narrative recalls the form of a myth rooted as myths are in the tragedies of human suffering. Murugan is a prolific writer whose novels Current Show and One Part Woman have also been translated into English. In the story of a goat, first published in 2016, an omniscient narrator reveals the couple's perspective and Punachi's thoughts. By allowing the reader to see into the sentient magical being, Murugan transforms Punachi from an unworldly disruptor of the couple's lives into a human proxy. She is no mere plot device. She thinks and feels what we would think and feel. She mourns the loss of a lover. Ponachi stood still, feeling great emptiness within. She struggles with guilt about her existence after losing a loved one, asking, "Why should I live anymore?" She is pleased by ideas like freedom and takes pride in being able to raise children. She loved the idea of a pasture filled uh, with lives she birthed. On the farm is a microcosm of life in the human world, and humans are subjecting their animals to the same pains that they themselves decry. Punachi, as a perspective being, longs for her lover and wonders at the fairness of breeding methods practiced by her humans. The story of a goat is feminist in its depiction of a goat's desire for freedom in her coupling. Before Punachi is allowed to be with her chosen mate, she is bred with an old, unfamiliar goat. The description of this act is decidedly violent, paralleling narratives of rape. Uh, and I'm taking the quotations from the book. It felt strange to think that a dried up old goat has invaded her body. She reflects, she is disturbed by being exploited and while being entirely emotionally connected to another goat titled Puval. Although she feels shame about the initial breeding act, she longs for a better situation. The two kisses planted by Puvan lingered on her mouth. She thought about it all the time and her happiness playing with Puvan. Murugan shows how both goat and human are subject to certain expectations determined by their gender. Punachi's care falls mostly to the old woman, who in turn realizes that her daughter's gender loads additional responsibilities on her own family. The problems faced by women in particular were endless. Thinks the old woman, how many lives could her daughter possibly look after? Punachi faces grim circumstances. The farm is a place where goat meat is cooked and children are taken from their families to be raised on the farms. While none of this is extraordinary in the farming world, Punachi's sentience and awareness make it gruesome. Punachi yearns to be with her children and she understands exactly what happens to the goats who are sacrificed and cooked. As the novel continues, the land dries up and humans uh, uh, horrifying faces mirrors through Punachi's description. Furthermore, both humans and animals are subject to similar laws. The parentage and caste of every child is scrutinized, and all black ghosts are vilified. There's a little relief from both oppression and famine. Murugan uh, clearly has shaped his novel with the strife of contemporary India in mind. This is a desperate, sad story, but it is also one of endless longing because Punachi holds the potential of a magical being. The couple feel an obligation to keep her alive. Doing so requires great care and sacrifice. Taking care of this miracle is ruining our lives. That's what the old woman says as things grow more and more dire. Even Punachi is aware of how she has become a drain on the farm's resources. What could anyone do with a miracle during a famine? She wonders. Miracles and exhibitions were meant for people who were relaxing after a sumptuous meal. The story of a goat isn't one of those novels that infantilizes its situation and animal protagonists. The clarity of Murugan's conjuring of Punachi opens a way for us to examine own malice, choices, and most intimate thoughts. The novel is remarkable for both its tonal restraint and its deft boldness in assigning depth to the interactions of farm animals. Once our empathies attached to Punachi, some moments of this story are hard to read. If Murugan wants his readers to experience such griefs, he expresses them with the sensitive directness of one who surely has experienced them himself. With this, we have come to the end of the session. Don't forget to go through the swellings uploaded in the GNMS portal. And thank you, and see you in one more interesting sessions on MIL.